During a raging snowstorm, a drifter returns home to the blue-collared bar located in the remote Canadian town where he was born. When he offers to settle an old debt with a grizzled bartender by telling him a story, the night's events quickly turn and spin into a dark tale of mistaken identities, double crosses, and a shocking violence. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot back again with another Fantasia Film Festival movie review, and today we're talking about the horror mystery film, The Oak Room. Very excited to let you all know what I thought about it in this non-spoiler review. Before we dive into it, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date with what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. Give this video a thumbs up, helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, let me know in the comments if you guys have heard of this film. I'm gonna leave the trailer in the description below. Let me know if it interests you, and let's have some discussions in the comments below. So I've seen about 5 or 6 films so far in the Fantasia Film Festival, which, by the way, this is one movie review out of several that I've been covering the last couple days for the Fantasia Film Festival, which, again, just from me to you, Film Festival, thank you so much, Fantasia, for having me be a part of this. This has been a very awesome experience, my very first film festival, and I've seen some interesting films, but I have to say, out of the films I've seen so far, starting off with the positives, this is probably my favorite movie. The Oak Room is such an interesting story. It's a story within a story. I mean, how many times have we heard the story? There's a guy that walks into a bar, and the movie takes that concept and just gives you this interesting story, this interesting, compelling characters. Starting off with Cody Calahan, who, this is my first time being exposed to this Canadian director. He has this kind of Hitchcock approach, kind of almost Quentin Tarantino-ish type of approach to this film, where it's a mystery, it's a horror film. The way he shoots his scenes, the way the lighting kind of creates the sense of tension and mood. Such a great movie in a sense of just being so invested in the story. The way he sets the stage and telling the story. Number one, we have mainly focusing on 2 characters played by RJ, Mitte, Steve, and you have Peter Outerbridge played as Paul. And Steve has been out of town. He's been off in school doing his own thing, but he's now coming back home because he's heard some news about his dad. He's trying to get some information from Paul, but you can tell there's some tension there. But in exchange for Paul and Steve to kind of rekindle the relationship, but also Steve to be able to get something from Paul, Steve wants to tell him a story, and this story is a story about violence, about mystery, about double-crossing, about misidentities, and it is just such a thrill ride. I mean, there's the story that Steve tells Paul involving another bar that's taking place in Canada, that's in the middle of the night, in the middle of the snowstorm, was just so integral. And the way that they tell the story kind of backwards kind of reminded me a little bit of Memento a little bit there. Again, this film has a lot of different things that it pays hearken to that kind of reminded me of, and I really enjoyed that aspect. But I thought the relationship between Steve and Paul, you could tell that there's some history there, but you can also tell that Paul is not a fan of Steve, especially the way Steve left his home, and then particularly left his father, which that's another thing that I really liked about this film. At the core of it, it's a mystery, has some horror elements, kind of those tension vibes, and it's a suspense, but it's a story about a son leaving home, but also leaving his father, and it's kind of this complex relationship of his father maybe not necessarily living up to the expectations, and how Steve kind of wants to become his own man, but at the same time, he doesn't respect or appreciate where he came from or the things that his father had given him. So at the core of this film has a lot of heart to it, but at the end of the day, it is a very suspenseful horror film, and I really enjoyed that aspect about it. Again, the mystery, the story within the stories, and the way the story is told was just so fantastic, so entertaining, and it kept me on the edge of my seat throughout this hour-and-a-half runtime. Getting into some other things that impressed me was the acting. Again, when you're telling a story, you got to make it believable. As they say in this film, you got to goose up the truth sometime, and I love the way that the stories within the stories were told. Again, it's interesting how when you hear a story from Steve, how it's different from when you hear a story from Paul, and how they kind of maybe stretch the truth a little bit, or maybe add some flair in there to get you invest in the story. So I really thought that was a really good touch of character development. Again, the way the story is told by each character is told differently based on their kind of character traits. So if there were any qualms or any criticism I have at the start of the movie, again, RJ Mitte, if you guys are familiar with them, I'm very familiar with them, with Walter Jr. from Breaking Bad, and I've seen Peter in a lot of movies. At first, it seemed like at the start of the film, you can tell there's tension there, but I felt like it was forced in regards to Paul being upset with Steve and the way Steve was kind of like kind of being cocky to a certain extent. I felt like that was like the first day of shooting and the chemistry wasn't all the way there. But as the film kind of progresses, you can tell that the tension was there. There is a relationship established. But at first it was kind of just like, this relationship kind of feels forced. I feel like Steve is forcing to be upset with Steve, and it doesn't seem to be that authentic to their two characters. But again, it fleshes out. You get more of that backstory as the film goes through. But besides that, a little quorum and kind of criticism, I really enjoyed this film. Again, it is thrilling. It's a mystery. It has a very violent scene in the middle of the movie that came out of left field, and once that scene happens, it just kind of ratchets it up and intensifies the experience. And I thought this was just such a well done story. Cody Calahan, I will be keeping an eye out for your work to come because you are a great storyteller. The way this film was shot was gorgeous. The soundtrack, the score, the lighting, the cinematography was very impressive. So I'm going to give The Oak Room a 4 out of 5. Again, this is my favorite Fantasia Film Festival so far. All of the other films I really appreciated, but they seem to have that very independent feel as far as the cinematography and the look and the vibe and the tone. But this felt like a movie that you could see at the theater and really be invested into. So The Oak Room, very kudos to you. Very good story, very good movie, and I can't recommend it enough, guys. So let me know what you all thought about this review, and if you're excited to see The Oak Room when it becomes available, hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, this is one of many Fantasia Film Festival movie reviews that I will be covering on this channel. I have a playlist just dedicated to these, so make sure you check out those other videos. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos. Keep an eye out for some more Fantasia Film Festival coverage. Hope you all are staying safe. Thank you for watching this review, and we'll see you on the next one.